Welcome to Your Asian Besties, a podcast where we reflect on our life experiences and what's helping us along the way. I'm Maryn.
I'm Rée.
And I'm Lia.
Each episode we talk about a topic, unscripted and unfiltered. And today we will be talking about having babies. I am so excited for this episode because I am personally very interested in what you both have to say.
Oh boy.
Obviously the topic of parenthood is very large. So this is just like the intro to probably many more episodes to come. But I think in this episode, we really just wanted to focus on like when did you feel like you were ready for a baby? Did you always know you wanted one? I know living in, the times we're living in, it's tough. And right, there's a lot of factors that go into it. It's pretty easy to make the case to not have a baby. Times have changed. So I guess to start, question to you both is, did you always envision yourself having kids and starting a family?
Leah, you go first.
All right. I can't wait to hear your answer, right? Exactly. I definitely did. I grew up with a sister, a large family. I have 4 half siblings who are about 16 to 20 years older than me. So like holidays and birthday parties were always just, filled with people. And then, I have one sister who's a year and a half younger than me who we grew up together. So I always knew I was going to have kids. Of course, when, the last episode we talked about marriage, I didn't know when I wanted kids. But by the time I got married to Kevin, I was approaching 30. So I think I thought I would have kids sometime in my 20s, and when that didn't happen, it still felt like the next natural step after marriage was having kids. So I was pregnant pretty, shortly, like within the year of us getting married. I think my next milestone was how many kids did I want? I knew I wanted more than one. And Kevin had 2 siblings. So then there was always this question about, 2 or 3. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But yeah, so I have 2 kids. They're 7 and 9 now.
Wow.
You made it happen.
I know. You really
I manifested the kids.
And you knew and you wanted them. Like, that's amazing.
Ray, how did it go for you?
She bought the domain.
Yep.
Family of 4.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. I think, so having grown up like as the only child of a single mom without my biological father from the get-go, and with having multiple stepfather figures in my life, I just remember, and also being the youngest in my family of like the extended family, I remember having very little power and never feeling like I was allowed to be who I was. Like people were always trying to change me. Like, oh, you're not dynamic enough. You're too shy. You're like, and then the other side was, oh, I'm so sorry for you. Like you don't have a dad, right? And so like, I just knew I never wanted to get married, and I never wanted to have a child. And so, I think 7 years into my marriage, I realized like, oh, I'm not getting any younger. And I know like if I were to have a child, I was doing the math, right? Like, I know that our prefrontal cortexes don't develop until the age of 25, 26. And I knew that I wanted to be able to live to see my child become mature. And also I know that it's around the age 40 and 42 that a lot of like people say that they found their life purpose. And so I was like, I would want to live to see my child get to that place of finding their purpose. And so I did the math. And I also looked at like my grandparents and what age they lived until, and at what age my mother's health started to decline. And so I was doing all the math and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have a kid now or else I'm not going to be able to, you know, and, people say you're never going to be ready, right? To have a child. And so I was like, I've never met a parent who um, has not loved their child if they chose to keep their child, right? And so I was like, okay, just banking on what I know about society and my family, I'm just going to go with it. And I know that like my husband is not going to leave me for some stupid reason like my biological father did, um, or all my other stepfathers did. And so I was like, all right, just taking the leap. And now I have a daughter. Um, I don't even know if
You
I asked
always
the
make us look.
question.
No, you always make us look bad with your responses, Ray.
What?
I think because
Wait,
you're
why?
you're so thoughtful about it. Like I've never thought about those things before.
Well, I think it's also because I've had this trauma. Like, so much of my decisions and my thinking come from not wanting to relive through the same traumas I lived through growing up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, but
Yeah, I
yeah.
was thinking. Yeah, because you said you were you did you grew up not thinking that you wanted marriage or you wanted to have kids. It's almost you had to be convinced of it. So you actually have better reasons than me.
What about you?
Well, clearly I don't have kids yet, so that's why I wanted to do this episode. I've gone on so many Reddit threads to be like the pros and cons, like how did you know,
Oh
And
no.
it's always just a mix of responses. They're just like you're never
I'm
ready,
like, I don't
you
think
never really know, because I just always felt like you hear these stories like, oh, that some women from like a very young age or even young girls know they want to have children and they just when there's a baby around they're like, oh, and I was really never like that. I mean, kids are cute, and my mom was a kindergarten teacher, so I would see how cute they were, but I would get exhausted by them. So I was just never one of, so I just wasn't sure. But just as Ray is, but maybe not as thoughtful as she is, my friend, I think, was joking. She said it's like a going out of business sale. As you get to a certain age, you're kind of like, all right,
Oh
you know, now or never type of thing. But I mean, yeah, I mean, to be serious, like, I think, losing my mom last year, my mom was an incredible mother. I think she always knew she wanted to be a mom. She was, taught in early education her whole life. She loved kids. Um, and so I think just for me, recognizing like how powerful the love of a mom is, like it's so powerful. Like to me, I think it's one of the most powerful things in the world. And so it takes on new meaning where I'm like, okay, maybe I didn't grow up, thinking, oh, I want kids and I want to, be a mom. But I'm like, this is part of me, like carrying on her legacy and to just experience that. And I had one girlfriend who told me that, having children, it's one of life's greatest experiences, right? It's like a ride, it's an experience. And I just want to have that. I want to be able to experience that. And so when I heard her say that, that's what has resonated with me the most. Like it's just it's a part of life, it's a possibility in life. And I do want to experience that, you know? And so, yeah, that's where we are. But I have to turn my perfectionist brain off when it comes to it
no.
because I can talk myself out of it really easily. But speaking of my mom, I'm wondering if you both had any models of motherhood that inspired or influenced you, and it could be like in a positive way or a negative way. Like anyone that you maybe looked up to, or it could even be in the media. Or yeah, is there
Yeah.
anything that comes to mind
Leah,
when
your
you
eyes
like
went
when you
up.
think of when you think of mothers or motherhood?
I mean, when we talked about mental health and whatnot, I think that was my biggest example of making sure my kids knew they were loved, that we freely said, I love you, we gave hugs and everything. I think that was my biggest takeaway, just because I didn't experience that growing up. Um, and then if you were to ask me versus Kevin, like who's like the nicer parent, it's probably me. And the reason why is I know like even with my parents, like my mom was more of the disciplinarian and my dad like he had the my half sibling, so he had raised kids before my sister and I. And I think like this time around he was just, more like lax about things because, he knew we would just like turn out fine. And I'm kind of like that with my kids too. I guess like I bring in like what my dad brought for me. Like, we play board games. Like I try and teach Phoenix, like he likes Scrabble, or card games. Like I've taught them blackjack. Like I'm like, it's math, like add to 21. And Kevin loves playing those games too. Like even like I, he and I play cards, this game called Pinochle with his parents. It's a very old timey, like old school game that's super fun because you play in teams. Anyway, but those are some of the things that I instill from both my parents, because like I want that balance of like fun and levity, and also right like checking their homework after school, making sure that they're getting good grades, and pretty well rounded. One's in sports, one's in music. And I think all of those I took from my parents, right? Like they always encouraged me and my sister to, you know, do other activities and supported that wholeheartedly. So I always, for the most part, like I always make sure I make my son's games practices. I try. I mean, they're really sitting in the car for an hour and a half, but like we'll take them there. We have that dedication. And I think that was another thing my parents made sure to do for us. Like school came first, or like if we had events and whatnot, like like they'd always give us a ride to the mall or whatever. So I think just being there. And by the time I was in middle school, they were both able to really like stay from home. Like I don't know if my mom was retired or just like whatever, for whatever reason in middle school they decided that they wanted to be around more. And like I have this vision for myself too. Well, I work from home now, but like by the time they're in middle school, like I don't want them to just come home to like an empty house. Like I want to be there. And part of it is like I want to know what they're doing still and make sure they're not getting into trouble. So I think that's another thing I'm starting to anticipate. And and it's funny because I reflect now, and I did ask my mom recently, and she's like, yeah, that's exactly why we both decided to make sure we were around in the daytime. I was like, oh, I get it now. So I think those are my biggest moments. Just, yeah, being there, like being supportive, and also being there like to make sure they're not getting into things they shouldn't be. So
Yeah. I think for me, like growing up, you know, my mother was really busy and and very understandably, because she was working multiple jobs to make ends meet, and she couldn't give me a lot of her time, but also, she didn't really have a good understanding of how the American society worked. And so, like, there was a lot of, um, I don't know what the word is, but I didn't feel like she really knew what she was doing. And she was just sort of winging it and getting whatever help she could get along the way. There was no plan. And so even with school, it was like she did the best that she could to get me in schools and things like that because she knew she was going to outsource most of my life, because she didn't really know how to give me the life that she wanted for me. And so I think, I did go on a lot of play dates with like my friends' mothers and things like that. And I remember looking up to those mothers. I remember there's somebody we went to school with, and her mom was the Girl Scout leader. She did a lot of different things for the school. She was always around. And I just remember going over her house, and her mom was so loving, and also very firm in her kindness. And she was very cognizant of what she was feeding her child. And like even the media diet that my friend was consuming, like she knew everything, right? And she was curating those experiences. I remember like we were watching like Little Buddha, like I was watching that with my friend, and my friend was like commenting, right? She was like annotating the whole experience, saying, "Oh, I heard that this is a really famous scene because so and so, or this happened because so and so." And, yes, my friend was smart, but she was getting that from her parents. And somebody was with her every step of her childhood, like introducing her to things that would build her like knowledge database of not just culture but education and all of that stuff. And I felt like my mother would do that if she had time, but she didn't have a lot of time. And so I remember looking up to a lot of my friends' moms, and seeing what they would do, and also the media. And I want to say, like, that friend, right, the mom, she was actually on a television show that I think we probably all grew up watching, Full House. So, like I had a lot of people to look up to, both in character and then also in real life. And so those were the role models that I had. What
So
about you?
your the mom played the mom in Full House?
No,
Oh,
not.
because there wasn't a mom.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say I
there
wasn't
wasn't
a
a mom,
mama.
There were a
but
bunch of dads.
she played um a role in that show, but not like a huge one.
So LA. I love
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's very ironic to me because my mom was kind of like what you're describing, like so active, she led everything. She was, I think, our like classroom mom in
Yeah,
elementary school, and she went above and beyond in
she
every way, like
did.
making every holiday special. We celebrated Easter, she'd do the egg hunt. She just always really, yeah, was like the mom of all moms. Like a lot of other moms, I think, in our community did look up to her. And, but I just felt like I had a different personality, like growing up. I was just like, she's this alpha mom, and that's great. Like, she's,
That's her.
yeah. But then it's like very ironic because I almost feel like my maternal instincts came out when I had to care for her at the end. And it's like the things that I didn't even know were there. And I imagine like that's kind of how you might feel as moms. Like there's just some otherworldly strength in you that you don't even know you have, that just has to come out. Like when you're sleep deprived and everything else, and you have to go through the unthinkable, that somehow you just have these reserves of, strength, and you can rise to the occasion. And so I think going through that, it's kind of like going through your worst fear in life, because I was pretty much afraid of motherhood, to be honest. I'm like, I get so cranky when I don't sleep. Like, am I just going to be an awful person? You can get so much in your head about things. And of course, like the finances are scary enough to prevent anyone from trying these days. But I think, and I think one thing my mom did tell me once was it's just a leap of faith, really, like getting married or starting a family, it's a leap of faith. And so I think it wasn't until I saw that strength within myself, and I saw that I actually have a lot of those qualities my mom has, that I didn't even know were there. And, losing her was really scary because in the back of my mind, I thought, oh, I'll always have my mom there to help me or to guide me. But it's very ironic how life works. Is I think going through that experience made me realize that I have those same qualities. And because so many people were telling me that, like, oh, you're your mom's daughter and everything else. So I think I will. I should have brought tissues, but
No.
yeah. But I think that's what I will rely on, as we go into that. embarking
Yeah.
on the journey, the next chapter.
Yeah. No, and that's really tough, Maryn. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, like, yeah, losing your mom and like knowing that she was such an amazing mom. And I remember going to elementary school with you, and I remember being always so envious of like that energy that she brought into the classroom. And like she just had such a nurturing voice, right? And she was like an educator and a mom, like in one body. And so it was like double the influence and impact. And I always remember looking up to her and your family and seeing that as like, a pinnacle, the pinnacle of what a mother should do for their child, as an educator, um, who like takes them through that entire life. But as you were talking, Maryn, it made me realize like she did such a great job, right? That she was able to pass on that strength and that courage and that like strength to be nurturing. Like she did such a good job of nurturing that voice within you, like she allowed you to be so compassionate and build up that inner child within you that you are now mature enough to carry on and become a mom of your own. And whether that's the mom of your inner child or the mom who had to be there for your mom when she was struggling. And I know that, like there are lots of things ahead that you'll still be supporting her. And so, yeah, like it's just a testament to how important having that kind of strength and education be given to you at when we're developing. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I was gonna be like, Maryn, I have no maternal instinct either. I didn't
Neither
babysit.
do I. I have zero maternal instinct, and
Okay, great.
So you're
good to
you're
know.
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
But at least you got to experience that. I mean, the maternal instinct even before having kids.
Well,
Yeah,
and it's
'cause-
something I never considered, that you may have these like invisible reserves that just come out, right? Because it's like when you're thinking of yourself like as you are now, it's hard to imagine like making all the sacrifices or being in that situation. But then it's having gone through that with my mom to know that, oh, when you're in the situation, like
you
it'll
step
kick
up, yeah.
in. It'll kick in, right? It's like a
Yeah.
primal instinct. So I'm going to rely on that.
There you go.
And all of your advice, the two of your advice. Yeah, so I guess moving a little bit further along, how did you know you were ready to start trying for a baby? And is there anything you did to prepare? Because
yeah.
and I love this because you do, I think, come from different perspectives.
Oh yeah. No, I was just like, let's just try. Like, after we got married, I'm like, I'm not gonna like put too much thought into it. Like not put that pressure. And yeah, I got pregnant pretty easily. So yeah, I know it's not the case for everyone. But yeah, like I said, yeah, after marriage, we tried and it happened.
Wait.
So,
Oh my gosh. So, like, how long did you have to wait?
we got married in January of 2014. So 1/4 is our anniversary. And then let's see, my son was born in May the following year. So
Oh.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it was just like, honeymoon, a few months. Because it was part like I knew I wasn't ever gonna be like ready, like once again, like no maternal instinct. I just knew I wanted kids. And I was like, I still have so many things I want to do, like and also I'm 30, like I'm gonna be 30. So my 30th birthday in October, because we're Libras. I remember making an announcement on my 30th birthday that I was pregnant, because I was like holding a beer bottle but just pretending to drink it, and then at that time it was like okay to announce. So yeah, I was at least like 12, 14 weeks in,
Oh my
same
gosh.
year of getting married.
But
So
how
Simple as
did you
that.
know? Like, how did you
no, I
know?
didn't.
Like,
I mean,
oh, okay.
which no, like yeah, I just knew like kind of like loose math, not to the extent you did, Ray, but I was like, I'm in my 30s.
Yeah,
My mom had me at 36, so I can see her older,
I
and I was
see.
like, well, like, and she would tell me like, oh, it's hard to like chase after you guys after a while. And I was like, well, I want to be like youngish, like when I have kids, and then doing the math, I was like, okay, they're gonna be out of the house by the even before like whatever I hit, like 60, whatever. So I'm like, okay, good. 50-ish something, whatever. Sounds great. To be an empty nester. So.
You're like, I gotta start my brewery, so let's plan this
That's
out.
Exactly.
right.
So I was like, how are we gonna make this work? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so
I love
funny.
Yeah.
that. Okay, Ray, your turn.
Your
I
turn.
didn't forget about you. I mean, from my perspective, like, it was amazing. And that's part of why I started getting more, like, warmed up to the idea, because all my friends that said they never wanted kids started having kids or started moving towards it. And I'm like, uh-oh, here's this going out of business sale. Better check out the sale. See if there's anything I want.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. And just visually, it's comical, but it's also very deep. So thank you for your friend, for sharing that with you. And so like I said, like I knew that I wasn't getting any younger. But I want to add something, which is, um, I started to think about like my purpose in life, right? And I'm a storyteller, right? I'm a filmmaker. And so like I was dancing around this question of like what is the conflict I need in my life to make the setup of my life meaningful. Um this sounds very weird, but
You did it for the drama. No, I'm just kidding.
Scorpio
You're like,
oh
energy.
boy. Yeah, no, I did not do it
I
for
need a hero or a heroine's journey up in here.
yeah. And so like I think to the point like I had sort of in my mind was like there is a lot of background. Like I have a lot of background of the world built. But what is the actual story that's going to happen? And so I just remember thinking like what I need is to figure out like how to reparent myself. I need to figure out this piece about the education part. Like, I know I want to fix education. I know that I want to um, do education reform. And I couldn't really figure out all of those things. And so when my husband was like, I really do want to be a dad, like it took him like 10 years to show me that he would be a really good dad. And because he was that for me in many ways. And so I was like, I feel like this in my life, like if I were to live to a point where I think I'm going to live, just based on how long my grandparents lived and how long my mother has been around despite her own traumas. It's like this is the time to introduce like this missing piece that I need to interject in my story to make the entire story work and to have meaning or to have I really don't know if that's making any sense. And so that's when I was
It
like, okay,
is. I think
yeah.
it's a beautiful way to look at it, really, because you're kind of saying that you're saying it was like theoretical to learn a lot about life. I feel like you're such a learner, and so you know so much about so many things. But then what you're saying is like your personal story, what is going to give you meaning. And then it dawned on you that having a child might be the thing that would give you
That's
purpose.
right. That's
Mm-hmm.
right. Because I had been in therapy for a while, knowing that, because I knew, like, before I started trying, like, I need to heal myself first. And so when I started going to therapy and I started to realize exactly what I was dealing with and what parts I needed to meld together to actually become whole again. Yeah, exactly. And so the therapy sort of helped me realize like I'm never going to be ready, and this feels like the right amount of right time. And it was during the pandemic, right? And so there was a lot of time during that period.
A lot of baby making time. Yeah, I mean, just to echo you both, it's almost like with the loss of my mom, it's like the light in the dark of life. And it's like a part of me almost wanted to start trying immediately just to have something, right? Like have the meaning and everything. But then I knew emotionally that I had to give myself time to grieve and process my feelings, because that's another thing that I'm aware of. It's like when you're having a baby, it's growing inside of you and feeling so much of what you feel, right? So I just like you know, Rée said, it's like I felt like a responsibility. I should process my grief and go through some of this where I finally feel like I have some bandwidth to take on that whole, you know, new adventure in life. So I think part of it was that. And then the other part, to echo what Ray's saying, is that I felt like I had a partner who would be a good dad. So when we got to the point in our marriage and our relationship where I started to see those qualities and I could picture it more, then it warmed me up to the idea. So here we are, right in the present. So I'm going to throw a really loaded question at you both, which is, has motherhood been what you expected? What's harder? What's easier? What's been surprising?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a million things you could say, but just what comes to mind?
Yeah, because you've been a mom for at least 9 years now, I think you said.
I know. Ew, that sounds so old. Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, both times the newborn phase, I was like, what did I get myself into? Like, I was definitely, obviously not regretting. I love my kids, but I was like, how do people do this? Like, yeah, no sleep. I had trouble breastfeeding, you know, like I got mastitis, like it was painful. Like just all the things, right? And having to pump when I got back to work. You know, like you basically have to plug into a machine like 3 times a day and like block it off your calendar, and also just like put something big like busy. So, if, you know, like, and I didn't know what a mother's room was until like I became a mother, which is the place where you do the, you know, pumping to get the milk out of your breast, right? Like no one tells you this stuff, right? And I remember having like calls with friends about like traveling to work and being like, how do you do it? I thought you couldn't bring liquids on the plane. And right, like it's all these things, like, you know, like, so definitely like having other moms like that you could ask these questions, yeah, like was invaluable. So I remember a lot of that. So I think it was just like figuring out like logistically a lot of stuff became harder. Travel, like it was like moving, you bring so much stuff like duffel bags, diaper bags, trying to figure out where to change the baby. There's just like all these things, and you realize how many men's restrooms do not have changing tables, and you're like, this is BS. Yeah, Kevin would like get so annoyed. He's like, I have to change my baby on the floor, you know, like what if you weren't here? And you know, we'd always like make a big deal like whenever we
at the brewery you'll definitely have a all gender family
exactly
group.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, that's what I think, that's what drew us to brewery, is like most were family friendly, like where wineries aren't really, not so much. Breweries were, yeah, like a great place to hang out. Like there would always be kids running around, cornhole, pinball, you know, like games for them. So I think that was the other piece. So I guess what I didn't realize, I remember my boss telling me this because his kids were older than when I had my first at the time, was like when you have one kid, it's I think it was an analogy of like football or basketball, some sport, but it was like you're playing one on one. And then when you have like 2 kids, it's kind of like you know, you're like on the offense, right? And like you tag team, like one parent takes one kid, the other parent takes the other, right? And then it's like, okay, when you have 3 kids, all of a sudden it's like a zone whatever defense, whatever, right? And
I get what you're saying. I play basketball.
Okay, good, because I know. Yeah, but basically, you know, like how do you manage, right? And you know, like I think the hardest times when they were like little, like I would say 4 and under, is when I had to take them somewhere, like two of them somewhere by myself. Because that was the hardest, right? It's like the double stroller you have to take out. And then, like, if one goes wandering away or is throwing a tantrum, they're kind of screwed. So I think that was the hardest. But now I think past 4, I always tell people this. I'm like, once your youngest turns 4, like, oh, it's such a game changer. Like, this age they are right now is the best because they have their own personalities, their conversations, their stories, their friendships. They're becoming little people, and you can see their logic. Like, they were trying to explain to me why you could see the moon in the morning, like on the drive to school today. And they were trying to explain, well, it's because the sun's shining on it. But then, like, if the moon was gone, then it would be dark all the time. Like, no, not quite how it works. And, I'd have to explain, like, remember the earth rotates and it rotates around. Anyway, so it's, like, really cute, though, because you're like, this is how, like, their little minds work. And I'm definitely scared of the teenager phase, so I'm not quite there yet, right? But that's where, like, I start to see little things time to time, right? Where my son will be like, but so-and-so's parents let him do this, or, like, why is it a no? Why can't I da-na-na? And I'm like, uh-oh. Like, because I said so. No.
That's where you need your squad of, like, aunties and uncles to come in.
Right.
And, when they start not talking to you, then that was advice my mom gave. You have to have other moms or other, like, people that can come in and talk to your kid when they won't listen to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gosh, that's so funny. Like, what I'm thinking, like, where my mind wandered, oh my gosh, Leah, when you were talking about, like, the newborn phase, like, and what did you get yourself into? Like, yeah, and I want to tell you, like, so my experience, right, has largely been like an educator and like a project manager and like a producer, right? So my whole life when I'm at work, like, is scheduled out, right, down to the minute. And so I don't know why it didn't dawn on me to do a minute by minute play of what being a parent would be like. And it literally is, there is no time for you. Like, all the time that you had in your schedule, none of that is for you anymore. You have to share that.
You don't own that. Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Like, even the shower, like, my daughter is now able to walk on her 2 legs, and she comes and watches me shower when she can. And even when I'm in the bathroom and she's like curious what I'm doing in there, and she's like, what is that sound, Mom? Like, and I remember,
and you
like,
can't lock the door either. Yeah, because you need to know where they are. Like, otherwise, if they're
100%.
quiet and getting to things and you don't see them, then it's also equally, like, panic mode.
Exactly. Yeah. You're like, oh my gosh, I need to finish my business, but I just hear silence, so I'm going to go out there. You can't even finish your business because you're like, oh, what's happening, right?
Yep. Or they're in there with you, and then you're like, okay, you're good, but this is also an invasion of my privacy.
No boundaries. These kids need to learn boundaries.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny because the other day I, like, went outside with my daughter to take a walk, and what line I've been using to help her come back in, because she does not want to come back in when we're outside taking a walk, I was like, Mommy has to go to the bathroom. Mommy really has to go to the bathroom. Let's go. And so, like, the entire way home, she was like, Mommy has to poop. Everyone is just
also
and so I'm just like, oh my gosh. Yep. So, like, yeah. So I don't know if that really answers your question.
That was one of the surprising things that you're experiencing about motherhood. I just want to share the because some of my friends are going through this, like, the toddler phase and newborn phase, and when you're in it, it's like you're in, like, a war zone.
Yes.
And then it's not the best time to ask, like, should I have a kid? Because I know Ray was like, if you can have a dog, just get a dog. This stuff
Seriously.
is really hard. So, but I appreciate it. Like, I appreciate the unfilteredness because I'm kind of going in with that expectation, right? Because, like, to Leah's point, I feel like, especially back in the day, nobody told you anything, right? We didn't
Oh,
have all the social media
wait
stuff.
till you're actually pregnant and you're going to the hospital and
Oh my
all the gifts
gosh.
you get from
Oh
people.
my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Well, this is another, I think maybe it has to be a different episode, but we'll dive into like the pregnancy and the giving birth because I'm very curious. But Rée might need some time to decompress first.
Oh, you mean
So
still
you won't
get
get
over my
traumatized.
trauma?
Yeah, yeah. We'll save that for the next season. So I'm just curious, like, what are some big things you've learned about yourself in becoming a mother? It could be big or small. Yeah.
You want me to
Maybe
go?
you're too much in it. Like you're too much
Oh
in
yeah,
the
maybe you're, you're like I
you're
don't
too
learn
in
anything.
the but you can't see the forest through the trees. Whatever, trees through the forest.
What have I learned? I mean, yeah, Ray, I mean, you've observed it, like definitely sharing your life with other people who really it's not that they don't have any consideration for your own life. They just take it for granted that you don't have your own life. Like you're there for them is the assumption like all the time. Um I think throughout the years what I've learned like as they start getting more independent is trying to suss out like what they can actually do for themselves and what is just like learned helplessness. Like my daughter would, you know, like even now, like she would be like, "Can you turn the shower on for me?" I'm like, "Let me show you how." Like you've done this like many times, and I'll go in there and I'll make sure it's not too hot, right? And then now her like brother will do it too for her, but I'm like, you know how to do it. Like I think she just wants someone to go up the stairs with her to the shower with her so she doesn't have to do it by herself. But she won't say that. She'll be like, I need help. I forgot how. I don't know how. Well, you know, and I'm like, yes, you do.
You know, and
Um,
that's feminism right there because there's actually a term for that. It's called like something I actually put it on our topic list, but it's
ooh.
something that apparently men do a lot. They kind of like fake incompetence so that women do it for them. So good for her. That's feminism that she's doing that. She's going to level out the scales.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But like even breakfast, like I'm like at what point do I teach my kids how to use a microwave? Because there's like rules, right? Like you don't put metal in. And then I'm like, do I trust my son to do that? Or you know, like I don't know. Like I kind of told him how to do the microwave, but like I'm like, but I can do it for you. Stove definitely not unless I'm there. Like my daughter will help me make pancakes. Um, Laundry, I'll have them throw things in the laundry, but I don't want them touching the soap. So I'll do that part. But they can throw things into the dryer, right? But it's like, when do you know like when they're actually like old enough to do these things? Like I think that's what I'm still learning is yeah, like when to like help them help themselves and when it's still my responsibility as a parent to do that for them. Yeah.
I think it's like so interesting because like Maryn, your original question like was what have you learned about yourself? And Leah, I think it just goes to show that when you're a mom, you're completely focused on the
On
child,
the
right?
kids.
On the
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't talk about myself.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a perfect example
Oh gosh.
of like you learned that you are
No.
no longer who you are. You are a caretaker, like first and foremost.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the goal is getting back my independence, right?
Yeah.
Like, but in a way that is not irresponsible of me, you know? Like, I mean, we've all heard the horror stories. Like, I've never gotten a pool, but you've heard horror stories of like kids wandering into pools, right? And like, whenever I've been like at a place with like a patio or like my in-laws who has a pool, right? I remember like at that age, like they better have a life jacket or they're staying inside. Like if I lose sight of them, like the first place I will check is like by the pool, make sure they're not there. You know, like all these fears, like same with stranger danger,
Yeah.
you know, like it was only recently like my son's of age now where I can leave him in the car just to like run into the grocery store or like grab food for pickup. And even the first time I did that, I just kept checking back in the car. Like I'm like, what if he touches something? What if someone tries to break in the car and kidnap him? And it's like, yeah. So I don't know. I wonder if that part also ever goes away, like the anxiety.
Oh
No.
my gosh.
Yeah, I hear like I don't think it does.
Yeah, I
It
don't
just
think it
turns
does.
transforms
Yeah.
into different anxieties, right? But
Maybe it'll lessen a little bit, but it won't probably ever go away.
well,
Like
people
from
tell
the
me,
baby
yeah.
phase. Yeah, I don't know.
But once they start driving is what I've heard other moms
Oh,
say.
Oh
Is when it gets
gosh.
really scary. They're like, no, I invest in the 360 app. Like, it tracks how fast they're going, where they are. I'm like, I used to think that was like invasive. And I'm like, no, now I get it. Like, I definitely want to know, like, if they say they're going to be where they're going to be, or, like, how fast are they driving?
yeah,
Anyway, yeah.
definitely. Oof.
It's really
So,
scary.
so yeah, you should have kids. Totally fun.
Yeah, I'm just taking it one step at a time. Like I can't. I'm gonna psych myself out.
Yeah.
But
And
so
also
you
I
don't
think
have,
what
yeah.
Leah is
Go.
saying is about like how you don't have like that idea of looking after your children, like that fear of death never goes away. So as soon as you give, I think, birth to your child, that anxiety, like depending on what your predisposition to feeling anxiety and like fear is, but mine was already high even before I had a kid, and I should have taken that into account because now like my life it's just pure amygdala. Like that's the only
Hmm.
part of you that you will ever like, that's the only part of me that people will ever see is my amygdala because it is driving, and you will never see like my actual self that was, that is not fearful and anxiety ridden again because I'm constantly afraid of anything and
Do
everything.
your husbands have that same that same
Oh, Kevin's the reason that I'm not as anxious anymore is because he'll talk me out of it. He's like, no, that's not gonna happen, or like, and he sounds so confident saying it. Like, I don't know if he believes it or not, but like I'll like, are you sure this is okay to do? And he'll be like, no, it's fine. I'm like, okay. So
because
like,
I'm
it's
wondering,
a
is there
good balance.
I don't know the
Yeah.
science. Like if anyone knows, it's probably Ray, but like is there something to it? Because like if they're within you, right? You're growing the baby inside of you, and then it's like a part of you is now outside in the world. So there must be some really strong connection that never goes away. That
So
is, it's a different experience for the partner.
there's something that reminds me of is the mother. So when the child is in the mom, that I don't know how to explain it because I don't understand it completely myself, but the cells of the baby stay within the mom, and some of the cells from the mom gets transferred to that baby. And so, like, if there is something that I'm struggling with and the cells from my baby can help, it will come in and it will, like, do its thing to help heal me, and vice versa. And I can look this up again. I don't even know
Is it
how I'm
like a
going to look it up.
chimera or something? Sean was telling me about that. I
The
told you Sean
chimera.
knows more about. Yeah, the chimera.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's related.
Wow.
It's
Uh-huh.
related. And so I really want to say that that's part of like what keeps the connection. But
Right.
there is science about like if something happens to the child, like if the father is supposedly like doing something and is yelling at the child for whatever reason, like the rage that the mom will feel is related, it's like chemically, biochemically. And so I remember when I was like um she was like, my daughter was a newborn. I don't remember what happened, but I was just like inflamed. I think my husband just said like one thing. It wasn't even like, looking back at it, though, he didn't do anything wrong. And I just remember being like red. And I think there are other things, like there's science about the father too. Like, I think children like to cuddle more with their mothers, but they like to play with their fathers. And I think that that's also like a biochemical thing.
Wow, that's so interesting. I'll make sure to send Sean away and be like, okay, you have to play with them because it's in your DNA. Okay, so just looking ahead to people like me, do you have any advice for new moms or those that are considering motherhood?
Do it. I mean, I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect moment, honestly. Um, yeah, and the instincts definitely do kick in, like once you have that baby and you're driving home with them for the first time, and you're like, the hospital people sent me home with this kid, and they're trusting me to keep this baby alive, so I guess I can.
Oh.
Yeah, what's that quote? It's like the best of times and the worst of times. I feel like it's probably something like that, right? The hardest of times, but the most joy.
It is, yeah. The joy is the best, though. I think it really is, Ray, what you said. I think it's kind of seeing them really like all their firsts, right? The first word they say, the first step they take, the first everything, and then how they imagine things, how they view the world, their hopes and dreams. Um, like all of that, I think it's just like an honor to witness because like there's nothing else like it. Like to have literally like full responsibility of this being, and also this being just like knows you as their parents, right? And like doesn't really question it and like trust that you'll guide them along, right? Like it's just a very interesting thing, right? Like there have been times they're like, what if you weren't my mom? Or what if dad wasn't dad, And then they'll just start like, I don't know, like going on off these random stories and yeah, but it's just yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I think also I don't think I answered your question, Maryn, earlier because this feeds into it. So I didn't the one thing that I learned from being a mom is that actually I'm neurodivergent. So I didn't know this before I had a child. Um, I mean, once you know what neurodivergence is, you're like, how could you have not known? But uh, after I gave birth, I also heard that when you become a mom, your potential or the capacity for you to develop ADHD goes up. And so, like people who do have ADHD, you'll probably see that your symptoms are aggravated tremendously after you become a mom. So, like, my thoughts have been like, I learned that I was neurodivergent, and the advice that I would want to give to people who are considering becoming a mom is first of all, if you haven't been living your life for yourself, um, and that you derive value or self worth from doing things for other people, you're not going to survive as a parent. And the reason is because once you have your child, you start to realize you cannot possibly be doing everything for another person 24/7. You have to, at some point, give yourself time to sleep and rest and reset and hydrate and eat, and have a shower. And if you have always, I guess, what's that word? I forget the word, but if you've given that away to other people in the past, you're going to learn it. You're going to learn to fight back for living your life on for yourself once you become a parent. And that is a terrible time to learn to live your life for yourself, is when a child needs you the most. And so, I was talking about like the pandemic and how that was a lot of time really what I should have been, and I was in therapy. I had been in therapy for 2 years prior. Actually, no, 4 years prior. No, I can't even remember right now. Like time is crazy, but I had been in therapy for a while, and I was working on myself. But I think if you know that you're neurodivergent, or if you know that you've had trauma developmentally or as a child, or if you know that you are prone to giving away your time and for external validation to other people, then you're not going to survive as a parent, or you're going to have to learn to parent yourself at the same time you're parenting your actual child. And so my biggest advice is before you bring in a child, that child deserves all of you, and not just half of you that you need to parent yourself. So parent yourself first and then become a parent.
Mic drop. There you go. I feel like you just answered a lot of the questions that were coming up. But I guess, is there anything that you're working on as a mom? Is there anything that you want to let go of as a mom? I also had the question of like, is there any advice that you give to yourself when you were a new mom? So that might be in terms of like letting go, or, I mean, I know we already talked through like, was it what you expected? But I guess, yeah, is there anything that's just on your mind currently about motherhood that you're working on or you're trying to let go of, or even maybe just like some words of love that you'd give to yourself, you know, at an earlier stage of motherhood?
I remember I was at this conference, the Grace Hopper conference. It's like for women in tech. When I think my daughter was probably one or two, so when they were both pretty young. And there was a speaker on stage. I don't know if it was a talk about motherhood, but she did at the end also give this advice that resonated with me. That, and I think we've all heard it before in different ways, but never spend like too much of your time working. Your kids are going to remember if you missed like their seventh birthday. Um, or it was even the extent of like they might not remember like if they're younger, but you will, kind of thing. And then, I sometimes like when I get sucked into too much of like work time, I think it's like taking a step back and being like, I only have them for a short amount of time. Like the days go pretty slow, but the years are fast. Like I am still in awe that my son's already 9. That means I only get 9 more years with him until he moves out of the house. And that makes me sad. And, I think of like our summers are limited. Every day with him is limited. And, like, not that I would, like sacrifice like all the time I had or my me time or my creative time for that. But then when I think of like, at least a few milestones, like, I want to make sure we have vacations every year. I want to make sure I'm spending enough time with them. Like, I never want to lose touch. And the other piece to that, I guess the counterpart, is when I was pregnant with my first kid, I remember a coworker who said, this summer I'm going to take a week off. I'm going to have a staycation so I can reconnect with my kids. Oh. In the back of my mind, I was like, why would you ever have to? Like I would never want to be in the position where I don't feel like I don't know them anymore. So I think like those two things. I think it's always been like, how do you find work-life balance or work-life integration, or, like what's enough time with them, right? And I think it's always like, I don't feel guilty anymore. And also I want to be intentional about the time I am spending with them to make sure we're making those memories, creating those experiences, and that, yeah, like, what things matter, and making sure that, I do that, right? Because it's like you never get that time back.
Oh, that's
so
I mean,
lovely.
that's really wonderful. Yeah, it's just like you said, it kind of reminds me of those, they talk about your obituary values.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
at the end of your life, nobody's saying, oh, your
Nobody
fancy title, your
yeah.
bank account.
You got it. I
Yeah, and
don't
it's kind of like
care.
the Maya Angelou quote of like, people remember how you made them feel. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's something that's what my mom always, I think, told her other mom friends is like, always put your family first because it's such important work, and moms are so devalued in our society, especially these days. It's like there's so many working moms, and nothing is like taken off your plate. It's like you just have so much on
Mm-mm.
your plate. And so I like, to me, you both and like all moms are superheroes of making it work. Like when I hear the inside stories of what you go through and the sacrifices you make, and that you're still showing up as good people in the world, is like amazing. Like I really do see you as like superheroes. I think moms definitely have superpowers. So
I feel like Leah is more of a superhero than I am as
Oh
far as
no.
being a
no,
No, no,
no,
no.
mom,
Right?
we don't
just
have that
Stop.
type
because.
of long shady talk on here.
Not that vibe.
I know. I'm gonna put a sound effect over
That's so funny. No,
I was
but
gonna
the
say, right,
reason
you
I
do
say that,
balance. No, you do balance creativity and being a
Yes.
mom. I
no,
want to hear how.
but the reason I say that is because I feel like Leah really has gotten to that place, if not always been at that place of valuing family, and like wanting to spend time with family. And I'm realizing like I probably because I didn't have a lot of regular family time with my own family growing up, but I had always been, I guess, conditioned also by society to be more curious about work and like the creativity. And I think our society like um awards or rewards you for
Hmm.
being society minded and work minded and things like that. And so like I'm realizing when I think about a, a day for myself that would make me happy, how much of it does include, how much of it includes my family. And I want to say, if I'm being honest, very little. Um, and I think it goes to show like maybe how like emotionally dysregulated I am and how exhausted I am.
No,
Um,
that's normal.
Yeah, I
For
think because
having
it's
like a
the
2-year-old,
stage.
like
Yeah, the stage you're
it is.
in.
I mean, I wasn't. Yeah, it took a while to get here. Like once you have a like, yeah, kids like that are 7 and 9, like motherhood's way easier. Like at 2 and 4, where they don't listen to instructions, they don't comprehend, they don't. No, that is hard. Like yeah, I mean that's definitely when Kevin and I definitely fought a lot more. Or it was just like a hassle to just even go to Target. I remember
yeah.
one time Phoenix threw a tantrum, cried on the floor, would not get out. And then Kevin had to take him to the car. And another time I wasn't there, and Ava basically scream yelled to the point where I guess Kevin said he was getting looks from people who thought he was kidnapping. Yeah, like it was that bad. Like she was like
It's hilarious.
screaming at the top of her lungs, like in yeah, like in fear, like God, nay.
Yeah. Oh
You
my
know, like
gosh.
no, like those are not happy times. No, Ray, that's totally normal. Like we could have a
Yeah.
whole another episode, but
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think you're in the wrong to want like alone time without your family, especially at that time when you're trying to rediscover the parts of you that you had to neglect because you had to take care of some being that needed you 24/7,
Oh my
right?
gosh, now it's
So
my time to need tissues, right?
I think now that
Um,
we've embarked on the motherhood and marriage, we just always should have tissues nearby.
honestly,
Because you
yeah.
never know when it's going to strike. I already knew I was feeling emotional before we got on. I'm like,
Oh,
uh-oh. But yeah, I agree. Like, Ray, like, you really don't give yourself enough credit because
no.
you're
Hmm.
very intentional,
mm,
and I think you're just going through this really difficult time, and it's just only natural that you would be craving your own,
Yeah,
alone time
you
for
should. That's
sanity.
healthy.
Yeah, it's like a natural thing, but you are like, I
Two-year-olds are
see
not
how,
easy.
yeah, you're so intentional with your daughter and the way that you're raising her and everything. So just know, yeah.
oh my gosh. I just wanted to share like this morning, I asked my daughter, "Can mommy give you a kiss?" And she was like, "No." And so I was like, "Okay, I will. And then I hear her go, Appa, you can give me a kiss. And which is, Dad,
Oh
you can
yeah,
give
they
me
will
a
do
kiss.
well manipulating.
And then like 30 minutes I like came back out because they were having breakfast, and I was like, and then she goes, Mommy, you can give me a kiss now. And I was like, okay. And then I got close and she was like, nope, never mind. And I was like, it's okay. I mean, and I want her to, I definitely want her to have that, like
Mhm.
know what she wants. And so I don't want to, and when I hear like my mother, sometimes she'll be on Skype and she'll be like, that made me feel bad, and I'd be like, Mom, it's not her responsibility to like make you feel good. You should be, and so thank you for saying like that intentionality. There is a lot of, things that I have to unlearn and be okay with, and at times like completely be stripped of that power and control. But it's hard work. It's really challenging. And if anybody is on the fence of like, oh, I need somebody to give me meaning in my life and that's why I should have a child, no. I'm going to echo what I told Maryn. Get a dog.
Get a dog or a cat or what was
Yeah,
the budgerator? A parakeet.
Yes.
What was I gonna
Yeah.
say? Oh, Ray, I just want to mention that I forgot what I was listening to or where I heard this from, but it's basically like I heard that sometimes kids act out more with their moms because it's actually the parent that they feel more safe with and secure to show that side of themselves. Because it's kind of sometimes a pattern that the kids will be like, oh, dad, like dad's fun and I'm just gonna go out and play with him, but to show that side, to their mom, it's because they actually feel safe and they know that you won't reject them or leave them. So I don't
I
know
have
if
to
that
think
makes you feel
about
better
that.
or
Ray's like, I
worse,
don't know.
I have to think about
but
that, but thank you.
so just to wrap up here, and again, this is just like one of many episodes to come on the topic of motherhood. I have like a long laundry list of questions to grill you both about. Um, like, what's one word or phrase that you'd like to encourage and give love to moms out there, or even yourself, or each other? Yeah.
You're doing the best you can. I mean, and you have to trust that.
Oh my gosh, just one word. I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, I
Not
couldn't.
like a phrase or just anything, a rant. You can go off. We have
Uh,
time.
well, I just wanted to say, like, the other day my husband came home and I was like, oh, like I did this to our daughter. I felt so ashamed I did this to our daughter. And he just was like, you're doing the best that you can. And so I was like, that made me even more emotional because every time he makes a mistake, I'm like, how could you do that? Or what were you thinking? Where was your brain? But like his first response is to express compassion. So I love what Leah said. Have self-compassion because you cannot hate yourself into self-love.
Yeah, I would just agree that I feel like with moms, there's just this huge, there's so many things out there that are just telling you, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, right? It's like this idea of a perfect mother, and there's always more you can be doing, and it's like a black hole to just feel mom guilt at all times.
Yeah.
And I would just, yeah, echo the both of you that when I'm seeing like someone who doesn't have kids and who struggles so much, I'm like, I can't imagine like if I had a child to take care of on top of everything I've been going through in life. And I know that we're all, no one is like can escape the difficulties that come in life. Like I can't even imagine just when you get sick and then the whole household is sick. Like that just seems impossible to me. So, yes, all mothers wear capes. You're all doing amazing and definitely give yourself that credit where you can. Um, but yeah, so I guess, now that we've embarked on the motherhood topic, we'd love to hear any other topics on motherhood that you'd like us to cover. So definitely feel free to DM us on social media at Your Asian Besties, or you can shoot us an email at yourasianbesties@gmail.com. And be sure to follow us and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any of your favorite listening apps. And thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye. I had trouble sitting on this angle.
Oh no.
I was falling asleep. But this is like a creaky chair.
Yeah.
I think the next time I'm going to bring in my office chair. That'll be way more
That sounds like a
comfortable.
good idea.
Yeah, because it creaks every time I move. So I'm like, ugh.